Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I'm coming back at you with another Wargaming and miniature video. In this video, we're going to explore the different qualities of different flock. I'm going to be using some static grass. I've acquired some new static grass. We're going to compare different manufacturers as well as some scatter. Now, when I say scatter, what I'm talking about is the flock that is made from sawdust. It's a little bit heavier and thicker, and so it'll compare differently. And what I've gotten out here is a bunch of N scale trees. These trees are about 1 to 2 inches tall, and then I've also got some 15 millimeter British Napoleonics here. These are going to be flocked after we do the trees. What I'm going to do is I'm going to experiment with a variety of different trees, show you, and because these trees are set up in pairs, we'll be able to kind of compare the different trees. When I say in pairs, like these two trees here are the same tree, but I put two different textures on the bottom. And then, so that'll help me determine if I like the darker or the lighter texture. I went ahead and did all of these with the light texture so that once I determine what flock I prefer, then when I put it on these Napoleonic figures, you'll see basically an end result. So let me go ahead and put these off to the side. We're going to start working with these, and I'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Okay, I got some scatter and I got some flock organized a little bit, less so. Okay, so you can see here this scatter is very thick, and it's also like a very bright green. It's a bright green. This is Faller. Faller Spring Green is what this is called, but it's a medium scatter. This is not going to work well with anything under 28 millimeter. I probably would only put it on terrain. I wouldn't put it on actual figures, just because it is, you can see the chunks are way too big. Okay, so we're just going to put that one away. I'm not even gonna waste my time working with that. It's too big. All right, I have another one that is made from bush. You can see it's a lighter green. It's not the bright green. It's a light green, but you can tell that the scatter is still too thick. This is medium. It's bush light green scatter. I'm not going to waste my time with that either. This one I might consider on like 28 millimeter trees, hedges, bushes. This is stuff that you would scatter on top of maybe your trees to make them, or under your trees. Now, when it comes to static grass, I'm going to be jumping around a little bit here, but when it comes to static grass, this was a static grass I got a number of years ago. I think it came in a Woodland Scenics shaker, one of those big shaker bottle things they have. But the length of this is what I would call long. So we're looking at maybe 4 to 6 to 7 millimeters in length for this static grass. And this will work well for your larger models and terrain, but again, not for anything smaller. So we're not, and I've tested this on some World War II figures. If you go back and look at a video where I did a flock test previously, I used some of this. No, it wasn't on World War II miniatures. It was on some 15 millimeter limbers. And when I used this, you could tell it was just way too big. So we're not going to be using this either. I'm going for tiny. I want to get something that I can use with my 10 millimeter or 15 millimeter models. Okay, in my previous test, we had used this Knock Spring Meadow. It was probably one of my favorite flocks for the limber test that we did, because this was 1.5 millimeter. 1.5 millimeter, you can tell it is super fine, but it's still a static grass. We are going to be testing this today, but before we start testing that, I want to get this out, which is also knock, but it's also 1.5, but it is considered their meadow grass. This is your spring meadow. This is just meadow. So I'm a little, I'm surprised they would call them both meadow. But let's go ahead and just open this up. It does come in a Ziploc bag, but I don't want to use a Ziploc bag. A lot of I've noticed that knock is starting to go towards a tub or a bucket. And just looking at it, you can see that this has got a different color. It's a more militant. It's more OD, more, I don't know. This is bright, but it actually looks really good on a base. But we're going to use both of these. We're going to test the two different colors against each other. I'm happy with this. I also have something called Bush Micro Scatter. It is still a scatter terrain, sawdust style, but it's microscopic. I mean, it's super thin, super small. This micro scatter will work really well for small miniatures. Something I got in just yesterday, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video, other than the bush, I also was pleased to see that Woodland Scenics not only did they have the big bucket static grass that is super long, like 6 to 7 millimeters. This one is their 2 millimeter light green. Okay, now this is also in a Ziploc, but again, we're not going to use it out of the Ziploc for convenience sake. But first, before we go into that, whenever applying static grass, they say use the static grass applicator, which is like this electric tool that when you sprinkle it on your terrain, it makes the grass kind of stand upwards, and because of the static. But I think that works great when it comes to model, like when you're doing landscaping, but when you're doing models, it's not practical. Now, they sell, here we go. You can't necessarily see this, but it says they sell 2, 4, 7, and 12 millimeter static grass. Okay, so pulling the static grass out. Okay, it's got a different consistency. It's almost like a mixture of static. Okay, this is weird. This has got a weird consistency. It's almost a scatter, but it's like, okay, it's like a hybrid of scatter static. That's going to be exciting to use. I'm going to have to see what that looks like. I also have an older set of Citadel Glade grass. It's also, this tub's like super hard to open normally. It's very heavy. I don't know how to explain it. It feels very stiff, like it's not a soft grass, it's like a very stiff static grass. We're going to experiment with that as well. I don't suspect I'll continue to use this. I think this, I don't even know if this is made anymore. I bought this, it looks like the date on here is 2007. All right, so for all these applications, I'm going to do about a 2/3, or yeah, 2-to-1, a 2/3 Elmer's to water mixture. So I put 2/3 Elmer's, and then I mix about 1/3 water. You're going to want to get your water to glue mixture pretty good diluted. You don't want to, you want a good mixture. You want it to have a very milky look all the way through, which it does now. Okay. Looks like we're only going to be hitting 5 different colors of static grass. So I want to make sure that I spread the static grass out over the various models. Okay, and as you can see, this was the ball of static grass that was in my hand. It will break up, but yeah. Okay, so one of those, that was a dark one. Okay, so let's go with a light one. But in this test, that's what we're doing. Because not only am I testing the look of it, I'm also testing like how much it covers. And when, you know, how much of it stands up. Does it stick? Does it look like grass? Or does it look like, you know, just a modeling material? Or what does it look like? Okay, I'm going to do a couple more of these in this color, and then we're going to move on. All right, now that I've got 4 of these guys done, I'm going to set this off to the side. I'm going to leave this package in the box to let me know, you know, which ones are which. Okay, we're going to do the Spring Meadow, which I really like the Spring Meadow, or I have liked it in the past. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to do a few more of these in the Spring Meadow. Basically the same thing. I'm going to coat, or I should say almost completely cover the base, and then I'm going to drop it from a height. You can see that it's it doesn't stick, and it rolls out of my finger really well. That was a light one. We're going to go with a darker one. All right, now let me do a few of these, and then I'll be back. All right, so the Spring Meadows, I did about 5 of them. I'm going to go ahead and leave it in the Spring Meadow container. That way we'll know, again, which ones are which. All right, so the next one is also going to be Nock, but it's just going to be the Meadow, not Spring Meadow. So it's going to have a little bit darker look to it. Okay, and it's falling without clumps. That's good. Looks like one to do. So let's do this light one. All right, let me do some trees, and then I'll be right back. All right, so those are done. All right, the next one is going to be micro scatter, which looks a little bit more like deadfall. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of that. There's like no mess, and I feel like there's always the best coverage. The downside is it doesn't look like grass. Looks like sawdust. Okay, so let me go ahead and continue on. I'm going to do about 4 or 5 more of these, and then we'll move on to another one. All right, and also because we are talking about scatter, I thought I would go ahead and use the Army Painter Battlefield Grass Green as a comparison to the micro scatter. So let's go ahead and just do a few of these. You've seen, or at least I have, I've seen a lot of this on the figures that I've been painting for my channel and the store. I use a lot of this Battlefield Grass Green sporadically. Like I'll put a gravel coat on the model, and then I'll put the about a 50% coating of grass green, kind of as a to break up the base. But that's great for 25, 28 millimeter. But when you're starting to talk about 15 millimeter or smaller, I think this would look too bulky. Okay, and the last one we're going to do is the Woodland Scenics Light Green. It's a 2 millimeter static grass. Okay, it's nice and soft in the hands, and it kind of comes out a lot like the bush. Or I'm sorry, a lot like the knock meadow. Now just the initial feel of it feels good, and it sprinkles nice and lightly, which is good. But what does it look like when it dries? That's the test. All right, let me cover a few of these, and then we'll get to comparing some of them. All right, now as a bonus, just came in minutes ago. We've got this static grass here from a company called Stonehaven. It's, what do they say? 5 milliliters, something like that. 5 ounces, or I don't remember, but yeah, 5 milliliters, 5 ounces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up. We're going to put it in this empty. It does come in a Ziploc. See, I'm very happy that these guys come in Ziplocs. For those of you that don't have like extra static grass or other tubs that you could store it in, I'm just kind of, I save things like that. Okay, after opening it, that fills like half a tub. I'm pretty impressed with the amount of static grass that came out of that little bitty package. Okay, luckily I've got a few trees remaining. We're going to go ahead and test this static grass as well. All right, let's go ahead and sprinkle it. Ooh, it's a little clumpier. It's okay. I just gotta. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit clumpier. Also, you'll notice that in this static grass, not only is it got green, but there's also browns and yellows. It's got a little bit of a different consistency, color-wise. All right, let me get these last trees done and we'll be back. All right, guys, now that I have done all of them, I've got the Stone Mountain, I got the Woodland Scenics, I got the Army Painter, I've got the Citadel Static Grass, I have the Knock Meadow, I have the Knock Spring Meadow, and I have the Bush Micro Scatter. We have all of these complete. The trees are all stewing in their own juices right now. Basically, this is something that you might not have heard from me before in my channel. All my friends know this, but when you apply your glue, this is just a general rule of thumb, but whenever you apply your glue to your model where you're going to flock it, and then you sprinkle the flock on to the glue, I've seen so many misconceptions out there that say you immediately turn it over, shake it off, get all the excess off, let it fall off. No. What you do is you put the glue on, you sprinkle your flock, and you let it sit. You let it soak. You let it grip. And then once the glue is dry, then you shake it off. And this is how I try to explain it. And I'm going to try to do it on the camera, but you've got your model surface, right? And then you put your glue on, and there's going to be this wet surface on top, and we'll call it it's going to like a puddle, right, of glue and water on the top. And then you sprinkle your grass, especially static grass. Not so much with the scatter. With the scatter, absolutely, you can shake it off. But if you're using static grass, it'll sit on the top of your glue. It'll just sit there. And when you shake it off, 90% of it's going to fall back into your bin, and you're only going to get a few little flakes on your grass or on your glue. Same thing with any of these, but specifically with static grass. And then when it dries, you'll have just a couple of little flakes, and it'll look like there's not a very good coverage. So what you do is you got the model, and you put the glue on top of it, you put the grass on top of the glue, and then you wait. And what happens is the static grass, and sometimes I'll bury it, like I'll just have my model completely covered, and what'll happen is the static grass or whatever flock covering you're using will slowly sink into, especially if you put extra excess on there, it'll sink into the glue. And then when the glue dries, it dries clear, because we use a clear drying style glue. It will be on there for life. It'll be on there forever. And then you shake off any excess, because there will still be some flock sitting on top of the glue because it was pushing everything else into the glue. But when you shake it off and you get rid of any of the excess, you get the best coverage on your model base. And yeah, I mean, it takes a little while. It takes a little extra effort. Like, instead of just instant gratification, you got to wait for the glue to dry before you shake it off. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to let this sit, and I'm probably going to give it, 30 minutes. Elmer's dries pretty quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to do like and especially when you add the 50% water, which I've only did 1/3 water, but when you add water to your Elmer's, it tends to dry faster because the water will evaporate faster, from what I've noticed. So we'll give it about 30 minutes, shake everything off, and then I'll show you what everything looks like. And that'll be the first part of the video. The second part of the video is doing the actual infantry figures in 15 millimeter with the ones that I think are the best. All right, I'll see you in just a couple of minutes. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and shake off the excess flock from the trees, and then we'll do an evaluation up close to see exactly what looks good and what doesn't look good. So now what I normally do is I take a makeup brush, 3/4 inch, and because it's got really super soft bristles right there, and then that way I can kind of just knock off any flock that might be on the tree or on the bottom of the base or any of that. So yeah, let me go ahead and clean off all of these bases, all these trees with all the excess, and then I will be back in just a moment. All right, so here are the trees. There's a variety of different ones. I don't know if it's going to be an easy comparison, but just looking at it with the naked eye, what I mean by that is I'm probably like 18 inches away, just taking a look at it, and I would say that that's from where I'm sitting to this table would be probably the closest I'm going to get. When wargaming, I'm not going to be like right up on the figures anyway, unless I'm picking them up and looking at them. So looking down at the table, I'm noticing this tree right here really stands out to me. But I'm going to kind of glance around at all of these. I'm noticing, now remember, on these trees, half of them were done with this brown, and then half of them were done with this mud. So I have to kind of take that into consideration. The Stonehaven, just as an example, does not have good coverage. The brown underneath really, which is not a bad thing. What that means is that I have to ensure that the base has a color, right? I have to color the base before I put the flock on. And in this case, this and these three and this, well, I should say these three are extremely dark, right? With the light green on top of it, kind of looks pretty good. But this dark, or the light brown with the green, it kind of disappears and almost doesn't even make a dent. And then these guys, you got the dark ones in the back and the light ones up front. The Citadel doesn't look like it covers very well either. The dark is shining through, and this brown is definitely shining through. If you look up here at the AP grass, which is the grass green scatter, complete 100% coverage, no ifs, ands, or buts. That's what I'm talking about. The Army Painter grass covers really well. It's just that it's too thick. It's too big of a scatter. Okay, now this Bosch micro scatter also definitely coated the bases, covered them. You're not going to see any undercoat at all. But on the downside, it is a scatter, even though it looks really good. So I'm going to have to consider this one as a potential figure covering. The Citadel, not so good. The Stonehaven, maybe not so good. But this Bosch seems to be okay, so we're going to give that a little cant. All right, now the Spring Meadow and the Meadow. Both of these are the Nock micro, like 1.5 millimeter static grass. That looks like it's covering dark, and that's covering dark. So that really stands out, the green versus the darker flock. But that color looks pretty darn good. You know, that this one too, and this one, and this one. I'm liking this Knock Meadow quite a bit, actually. The Spring Meadow, not counting this one, it's hard to see because of the way the tree is. Those look pretty good too. You know, these look really good color wise. Now this is on the light brown, that's the dark brown. Light brown Spring Meadow looks really good. The which is the direction I was planning on going in before I got these new flocks in. So Spring Meadow light brown looks good. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, I'm doing a shuffle here. This is just meadow on light brown. That's good coverage. That's really good coverage. This is light brown as well. That's also good coverage. Okay, now these are the two, like the shades of the trees are the same. So which one would you like? Do you like the light green or the one that's a little darker? I could go with either one of those, actually. Both the Knocks look really good. All right, now here comes the creme de la creme. I wasn't sure about the Stonehaven one. It does look like it doesn't cover very well. Woodland Scenics, 2 millimeters. It's got good coverage for sure. I mean, definitely, I don't see any of the, except for maybe that one. No, even then, it's got extremely good coverage. Okay, so basically, if I'm trying not to do scatter, right, we'll just take that out of the equation. I like these three, probably with this one the best. But I do like all three of these. And this is supposed to be light green, right? This is, double check. Light green. So they might make a medium green Woodland Scenics 2 millimeter. I'll have to take a look, which might be closer to this color. But generally, I think this is the color that I like best. All right, that's what we've determined on this flock test. You can compare on your own. What I'm going to do now is change the focus, bring it up a little bit closer so that when I bring the figure up, you'll be able to actually see what I'm talking about. All right, give me a second. So I'm going to do a few side-by-sides so you can kind of get a grasp. This is the static grass. No, it's not. It's the grass green from Army Painter. Actually, it looks pretty good, actually, to be honest. But again, I'm not sure what your thoughts are. Let's compare it with Stonehaven. Here, let's get a... Yeah, this is actually light brown. and so is this. They're both basically light brown. You can see how this doesn't cover like the Army Painter did. Okay, even if I was to pull out a darker or a heavier coated one, darker coated. Which one do you like? You like the static grass or the Army Painter grass green? I don't know. Okay, let's compare the Stonehaven to Citadel. So the one on the right is Citadel. Looks like the Citadel might cover a little bit better. The fuzz is about the same. Citadel, Stonehaven, pretty close. Okay. Now, let's take a look at this Bosch micro scatter here against the Citadel static. You can see it's got a different style of texture. I still like the static grass, even though this gives you definitely a better coverage. Scatter always gives better coverage than static grass, but I kind of like the dirt undertone with the grass. Kind of okay. Let's adjust the focus just a little bit more. With the grass going up. Yeah. Okay, so that's Citadel. Okay. We're going to do quite a few comparisons now. Now this is the AP or armor piercing. Army Painter grass green, and we're going to compare it to the micro scatter, the Bosch micro scatter. Same. Right? This one does have a little lighter tone to it because, you know, it just has a lighter tone. But same coverage, same look. Okay. Now the rest of these are all static grasses, but we'll start off by, we'll just put that one down. We'll do the Spring Meadow against the Just Meadow. I call it Just Meadow, but it's Meadow. I think they've discontinued the Spring Meadow. I've looked around for it and I can't really find it. So, but I was able to find Meadow. Meadow might be what they're replacing it with. It might be a color that they didn't like. I don't know. Or it might have just been discontinued at where I was shopping. They're very comparable. I mean, of course they are. They're the same company and they're the same millimeters. It's just a slight color variation on this one. It's a little bit darker, right? I like it. I like this. It's closer to the tree, right? But then again, I like the grass being this color. It just gives it a more I don't know. I like them both. Okay, so now we're going to compare these to the Woodland Scenics. We'll start off with the Spring Meadow. I don't know which one looks the best. Okay, this tree same. So that's what we're going to go with. Woodland Scenics, you can see it's got a little bit more fuzz, right? Well, this is 1.5 millimeter and this is 2 millimeters. So that would be expected, right? I still like the 1.5 millimeter. I still like it a lot better. But Woodland Scenics, easier to get. Comes in a bigger package. You get more for your money with this one. Okay. Let's compare just the Meadow to the Woodland Scenics. That would be this one. Okay. Trying to get same on the trees. Okay. Yeah, the Woodland Scenics one definitely looks a lot more fuzzy, right? And it is labeled as light green, and it kind of looks like, almost like it's got a little frost on it, right? Like a little, like it's extremely light, like maybe too light. And this is the dark, or the Meadow. I think I like this one best out of all of them. They all could be used. They're all efficient or effective, but I think the Nock ones, yeah, I think the Nock brand is the best. When it comes, the 1.5, it has the least amount of fuzz. I know some people loved it; they'll love the fuzz, and so go with that if you like the fuzz. The Stonehaven, I really like the fact that it's got kind of this red and yellow mixed in with it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. You just got to make sure that the bases are done. And it looks like a darker base looks best with Stonehaven, because the light brown bases, they don't look so good. It looks like they don't have coverage. But I guess the darker bases, they look better when it comes to the Stonehaven. When it comes to Nock, I think it could go either way. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to put some Nock and I'm going to put some Nock Spring Meadow, Nock Meadow, and I think I'm even going to do some Stonehaven on my Napoleonic figures, my 15s, and I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to shake it off. And then we're going to come back and we're going to take a look at how those three look on the 15 millimeter miniatures. And we're going to see, which one I'm going to use going forward. All right, guys, I'll see you in just a minute. All right, guys, we are back. I have went ahead and put the static grass on these 15 millimeter models. And you can see that I did my standard not covering the entire base, allowing some of the grit to shine through. I normally do that. You'll also notice that I've added some clump foliage. About 50% of these bases have 2 or 3 pieces of clump foliage on there, just to kind of give, for me, to see what the clump foliage looks like compared to the 15 millimeter models. I actually think it looks pretty good. We'll do some tufts on the other ones in a future video to see how they look. Now, I understand this is spinning kind of fast and you can't really see the static grass. We will stop it and we'll take a look at them real quick. This group here is the stone. Okay, you can't see my finger, but this small group there is Stonehaven. That's the Stonehaven flock. This is the Spring Meadow, and this is the Meadow. These two here are the Nock static grass, the 1.5 millimeter. This is the 2 millimeter Stonehaven. And just looking at the overall image, this Spring Meadow, the green really is green. That is a very vibrant green. and these other two are very similar in their subdued, more of a mid green, where that's kind of a bright green. I like this look. I think the Spring Meadow looks really good, but when I'm trying to bring it into a Waterloo perspective, these greens might actually be better, you know. Or I could go with that just to, because it's, you know, they're Napoleonics and I want my figures to pop. I want them to look great. So as of right now, I think the Spring Meadow is the way to go. I mean, that's it. Maybe with these two being a close second. Some units now, if I decide to do like a unit like this, because I'm planning on doing my black powder on bases about this size, I could easily do a whole unit with the Spring Meadow and then another unit with just the Meadow to visually identify which one is which unit has the best, or not the best, like different colored flocks. Plus I could even use other flocks for different units just to differentiate what those units. I could also go in and paint the sides of the bases, but I decided not to do that. Okay, but because we're talking about flock in this video. Okay, so I'm going to stop it at Stonehaven here so that you can get a better picture of that flock. What do you think? Just looking at the flock. Yeah, the clump foliage on there looks really good in my opinion. I just turned this manually. Yeah, what do you think? I think that flock looks really good. Now let's go with the Spring Meadow. Right? Spring Meadow looks good as well. And then finally just the Meadow. See how it's brighter green than these other two? That might actually be a little bit better. And then this finally is the just Meadow. It's the 1.5 millimeter knock Meadow. That looks good as well. That looks really good. Okay, I wanted to get a little bit closer so you can actually see the grass fibers. It doesn't look out of place. Looks good. Okay, and then we'll take a look at the Meadow, Spring Meadow. And then we'll take a look at Stonehaven. It's a little thinner. You can see through the Stonehaven. Stonehaven was a little harder to apply as well. It's back to Spring Meadow. It's got a little bit better coverage. And then just Meadow. All right, guys, this was my test for the static grass and different levels of flock. Tell me what you think, if you agree with me on my choice, and or if you use a different brand of static grass. Tell me what you use. Maybe I can get it in and test it as well. Until next time, thank you for coming out and checking out this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this, and I will catch you in the next one.